bringing the people behind our food to life.
What I like to do with making sausage is usually using the shoulder part of the animal. This is pork shoulder, 20% fat. The shoulder is a pretty heavily used muscle, so it's full of flavor. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure out 2 pounds of pork shoulder. And that is 2 pounds. And this is lamb shoulder, which has a little bit more fat on it. You can use leg on that if you don't want such a fatty lamb sausage, but I highly recommend it. Fat is flavor, and it makes it balance all the way through the sausage with spices and garlic and salt and everything else. And then the other one that we're going to be doing today is Italian chicken. It's going to be extremely lean sausage, and we're going to add some olive oil in there for fat as well. That way it doesn't dry out so much. With the breast, we'll use all pieces of it. Boneless, skinless chicken breasts are the #1 seller of any meat market. So these are the things you need to make sausage with. You need a basic home appliance that has a grinder attachment to it. This is called your horn. This is your worm. This is what spits out all of the meat when you grind. This is your blade, the most important part. And this is your die. This is what will end up cutting. So the die and the blade kiss each other, and when that happens, you have a grind. And you go ahead and seal it up. So we have our pork, we have our lamb, and we have our chicken. We can actually grind all 3 of these if you go through that step. So it would be beef, pork, lamb, chicken that you could grind through your grinder without having to clean it. Chicken, of course, we're going to do last just because of the chance that salmonella or other foodborne illnesses might happen. We're using a really fresh product, so it's probably not going to be an issue. So what we'll do is we'll grab our pork, we'll turn on our grinder. Slow and go is kind of the way to go. Basically, it's kind of a 2-step process. We go ahead and grind the meat first, then we'll mix all of our seasonings and we'll send it through again. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to overwork the meat. If you grind it a 3rd time, you're going to have a pretty tough sausage. We'll just set that to the side. Onto our ground lamb. Ground lamb I'm going to go a little slower on because the shoulder is a little tougher meat than actually the pork shoulder is. Lamb uses its muscle way more than what a pig is going to do. And lamb is one of those animals that not a lot of people are eating anymore, which is pretty unfortunate. So everything we're doing today, we're doing in 2-pound increments. You can go less if you want, but I think that 2 pounds is a pretty good number to shoot for. It'll yield us about 8 sausages altogether at a 1/4 pound apiece. 2 pounds will feed a party of 4 pretty comfortably. All of the fat I'm using in here, I didn't trim anything away from it because I want that fat. It's going to add flavor, texture, and it'll cook up nicely as well. It won't dry up on you. Next, we'll move on to the chicken. Like I said, we're using chicken breast for this, so it'll grind out pretty easy. Because the chicken is so tender, we go at a little bit higher speed because it won't be got up in the blade at all. Pros and cons of a chicken sausage. The pro is that it's very good for you, very healthy. The con is that sometimes it can dry up on you. And a dried sausage is pretty miserable. So what we're going to do with this guy is we're actually going to add a little bit of fat into it with olive oil. And we're going to flavor it pretty nicely because the chicken breast is kind of plain Jane by itself. And we're done. So the next part we're going to do is mix up everything. But in the meantime, I'm going to break this apart and clean it. That way we don't have any residual chicken left over on the grinder. So the three sausages that we're going to do today, the first one that we're going to do is going to be the pork chorizo. We have salt, black pepper, a really high quality smoked paprika, brown sugar to kind of sweeten it up a little bit, little chili flake for some heat, a little cumin for some earthiness, garlic, and a little bit of vinegar to kind of acetate it up a little bit. So when we're going to mix all of this, basically I want to use as less as I possibly can as far as movement goes. So I'm just going to sprinkle in the salt. And my rule of thumb on salt is pretty easy. For every 2 pounds of meat that you use, I like to use 2 tablespoons of salt. I'm going to go ahead and put 1 teaspoon of black pepper, a half a tablespoon of cumin, half a tablespoon of chili flake, 1 tablespoon of garlic, a little bit of vinegar, about a tablespoon of brown sugar, and we'll finish it off with smoked paprika. And when we're mixing it, just kind of let it fall through your hands. Don't work it too much. As long as we just get a nice coating on it, the second time that we actually grind it through, everything will kind of come to one and kind of be a little bit more cohesive. So we just kind of want to delicately do that. For the merguez, salt, pepper, cinnamon. Makes it a little fun, kind of brightens it up a little bit. Garlic. A little kiss of cumin. A little kiss of coriander to make it sweet as well. Coriander is one of those beautiful little sweet spices that we use. Tablespoon of cayenne. You can adjust this however you want. I kind of like my merguez to be a little bit fiery, but it's really up to you. Regular sweet paprika, and cilantro and parsley. We're going to do the same thing as we did with the chorizo, and we'll delicately mix this up as well. And the third one that we'll be doing is chicken Italian. It's a play off of a New York style Italian sausage, and we're adding thyme to it to kind of give it a little bit more flavor boost in it because it is such a bland meat. Start off with salt, pepper, a little bit of chili, crushed fennel seed to bring a little sweetness to it, a little bit of dried thyme that'll add a little earthiness, some garlic, squeeze of a half a lemon just so we can brighten this up a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and add our olive oil. There we have it. So now we'll start the second part of the grind. And this guy, you can actually go pretty fast on this because all the tissue's already been broken down. Now that that's ground, then we're going to go ahead and do the chicken, but I'm going to go ahead and clean off this part so we don't get paprika everywhere. And next we'll do the chicken Italian. Now for my favorite part of entire sausage making, that's stuffing the sausage. So basically what we still have our horn, our attachment. There's a little part on there that hooks onto the worm. This is our horn. And we just tighten it up. So when we're doing sausage, you can use a couple of different options as far as casings go. Today I'm using a hog casing. With the lamb merguez, you can use a lamb casing if you can find them. That's traditional, but for today we're just doing all hog casings. The best place you can get hog casings is from your local butcher. If you don't have a local butcher, I suggest you find one or get one or become one, or you can get your casings online. I'm using a 36-38 hog casing, which is pretty much the standard in the industry as far as making everyday sausages. When they come in salted. We go ahead and rinse off all the salt in water. They come in long strands like this, and this is all pork intestine. So what we'll do is we'll feed the horn. And you don't want your casing to be dry, you want it pretty wet. That way it'll slide off pretty easily when you're stuffing. And as far as how much casing you need, it's pretty much just a judgment call. I go ahead and just use it all. The cool thing about casings, if you do buy them online, you'll have to buy them in a hank, which they run right around 20 bucks or so. But you don't have to use it all at once. After you're done fleshing them out, all you would have to do is just soak it in salt, and then you can keep it in your fridge for an eternity if you want. Make sure it's on. And we're going to start with our chorizo. And basically what we're going to do is we're just kind of going to feed it through. I'm going to put a little bit in there first, make sure it gets to the tip. Then we'll go ahead and tie off our casing, and then we will go. I put my finger right at the opening, and when I feel a touch, then we're ready to rock. There we are. So at that point, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and tie off the end. And the whole thing about making and stuffing sausage is you kind of want to get it as tight as you possibly can. You don't want any air pockets at all in there. When there are, we'll go ahead and release those after we'll get done, and we'll prick them. Try to keep everything steady as she goes. Load up the hopper. And you just got to be gentle with it. Take your time, it's fine. And I'm kind of putting a little bit of pressure on the horn itself and trying to pack it in as much as I possibly can. And we're kind of letting gravity do the rest. If you get it too loose, it's fine, because when we twist them, we can make it as tight or as loose as we want. The other step that I would suggest doing is make sure all your ingredients are cold all the way through. When you cut, make sure you refrigerate. Before you stuff it, make sure it's refrigerated, nice and cold. And that makes for a better sausage as well. If it gets warmed up too much from working your hands, that fat will break down during the cooking process, and it doesn't make it too enjoyable to eat. The thing with the natural casing is the fact that it's actually got a lot of room in it, so they'll break on you, but they're pretty sturdy. The other thing with sausage making, you get very messy too. It's fine. And we are stuffed. So what I'll do, go ahead and cut off a little bit of excess, because as you'll see when we stuff it, you'll need that excess part. For right now, we're just going to leave it coiled right there, and then we'll move on to the merguez. Basically doing the same process. And with the merguez, I'm actually going to do something a little different. What we're going to do is we're going to do coils, how it's done traditionally. We're going to go ahead and roll it like this, and we're going to put a skewer right through that. And then if you were to grill it, you'd grill it as is. It kind of gives that wow factor when you present it. Next, we'll do the chicken Italian. So I went ahead and cleaned the horn and the base. All those sausages had paprika in it, and I didn't want to have the chicken Italian turn out red. So do the same thing. Feed the chicken so it gets to the tip. Go ahead and tie it off. Start her back up. If you wanted to make this sausage maybe kosher, you could use a lamb casing instead of a hog casing for it. Chickens don't have any casing, so you take that out of the equation. But it's a very nice pork-free sausage. Very healthy, flavorful. Go ahead, leave a little bit extra, and we're done with stuffing. First things first, before we start tying these sausages, if there's any residual air in there, we need to take it out. And the reason is for when you cook it, the casing will expand and it could break on you being a natural casing. So I have a sausage pricker, but at home, if you have a paper clip or a needle of any kind, go ahead and sanitize that in a little bleach, rinse it off, and then what you want to do is go ahead and start poking the sausage. This is the key right here of actually really good sausage. Most store-bought sausage doesn't have this done. So if you do buy store-bought stuff, I would suggest you pricking it before you do eat it. After we get done pricking our sausage, then we're going to go in and start making them links. So the first thing we're going to do is grab it, push the meat up as much as we possibly can to the tied section, and then we're going to twist it 2 or 3 times, usually works. Then we will go up to the second link and we'll kind of squeeze it. We're kind of bringing all the meat back in. That way it's solid all the way through. And what we're going to do is go the opposite way. So as we're going, we go 1 and then we go back. 1 and go back. And when we do that, what we'll have is a perfect little tie. In and back. Until we end up with links that all look the same. We'll go ahead and tie these off. If I'm going to be doing this in the afternoon and then cooking later on at night, I'll leave these whole as it is. It'll kind of let the meat come together, become one, and then before I cook it, then I'll go ahead and cut this off. And that is perfect sausage right there. Chicken Italian, we'll do the same way as we did the chorizo. We'll start off with poking. Now with the chicken Italian, these are going to be a little bit looser than the pork is because there's no fat, there's no bind in it whatsoever. So what I always suggest doing on them is actually making sure you have a little bit more excess of the casing on it, because when you cook it, you don't want the chicken to kind of fall out of the sausage. So I keep everything kind of tight. We go one way, then we go the other. Sucking all that in. As you can see, I got a longer casing going on there. And we got this little guy for a little Scooby snack later. With this, I would definitely suggest keeping it linked up for a little while, maybe a good hour or so before you grill it. If not, this is what will happen. When you grill it, it'll spurt out on you, and you really don't want that to happen. But if you keep it as is, and you have your little pieces right there, everything will stay even. Chicken Italian sausage. So making sausage is not that daunting of a task. It's pretty easy to do. You can have fun with it. You can experiment. You can take these sausages, you can then smoke them if you have a smoker at home. You can cook them in the grill, you can cook them in a pan, you can cook them in an oven. All of these products need to be cooked all the way through. Do not cook them to a medium rare. Cook them all the way through because they have been ground. It's the safest way to go. The best way that I think to cook these is either on the grill, 7 minutes per side, medium heat, lid down. Or you can cook it in a pan, medium heat, a little bit of oil on the bottom. Brown it for about 6 or 7 minutes per side, flip it over, maybe put a lid on there if you want. Do that an additional 7 minutes. You can't go wrong.
It's a challenge because it's the same thing every day, but it's always different. Because every carcass is different, and that's what makes it hard. Because of the repetition, but you have to concentrate at the same time, so it's a challenge. And I'm a challenge-based person.